Hello, Azati too. Nice to see you first. Now, narcissism is something I have been accused of from time to time, and therefore I can't claim to be mortally offended and unable to deal with the shock of this accusation. I know that I have myself accused others of this, and therefore I shouldn't be surprised when I am myself accused of this thing. It is a recurring accusation over the years of my political activism, and I wonder how normal it is. I must be fair to my critics and try to get into their heads and see things from their point of view. Now, we need to know what narcissism actually is, because often the word is used to describe things that are no more than, well, behaviors that is no more than, well, being a bit big-headed, being a bit boastful, being perhaps prideful and selfish. And I think to myself, really, a certain kind of person only would get into politics. I think those of us who think we will make a difference are probably few, because politics being competitive, unpleasant, and full of damaged, angry, bitter people, it is not the best sort of place for you to be in if you want to get on in life. Things are bad enough in the rat race in other areas of endeavor. I mean, business. In business, you will get other narcissists who want to win at all costs and don't care about the rules and the professions and the arts. You will be encountering people who might not be caring that much about the rights and wrongs of things, or the rights of other people, as long as they can trample over them in the objective to gain for oneself greater success and greater honor. So politics would be even more dangerous than the other places, because it's a place of ideas and a place of accusations, and often quite nasty accusations by people usually on your side who might wish to do you down, either deliberately or because they genuinely believe that you are the thing that they accuse you of. And also, when you think about what you are in fact trying to achieve in a sea, in an ocean of competition, you would really see that that you have really quite a minuscule chance of being successful, because there are so many people above you and so many people at your level, perhaps, and they're not always the most honourable and most honest people. And also coupled with what one is trying to achieve, or rather, I am trying to achieve, I do recognize the enormity of the task I have set before myself. I'm not just saying, okay, let's think of what other political activists do. They have to attach themselves to a party and try and succeed within that political organization with other competing political parties, and the bigger the party you join, the less chance you have of standing out, because A, there's so many people above you, and that means there are a whole lot of things that you can't say because that would go against the orthodoxy of your particular political party. So if you join the Conservatives in Britain, you would find yourself not being able to say a whole bunch of things, including criticise your leader or your Prime Minister. Or you would get yourself kicked out and be judged a failure. My particular goal in all this is simply to prove to myself, at the very least, and hopefully to others, that my diagnosis is correct. As Mao said, to investigate a problem is to solve it. Obviously, it is not as simple as that, but what I think he must have meant was that if you think through a problem, you will, at least in your own mind, know the theoretical solution to the problem you have encountered. And I don't think I am wrong in my diagnosis. So what is it I'm trying to achieve? I'm just saying, here is my diagnosis, and this is my solution. Am I wrong? And I've been doing it for over a decade. Or I could say I've been doing it all my life, in the sense that if I have ever thought of any political problem, I would try to solve it in my own head and incorporate it into my political views. So whenever the subject comes up in conversation, I would say, well, this is the problem, and therefore that is the solution. And so this is how my political thinking has developed, and I don't think I'm such a narcissist that I always ignore what others say. I do take into account what they say, because it is useful to know the quality and the quantity of your opposition, and the reasons for it, of course. It would be crazy not to, because I think Hegel was right when he talked about dialectical materialism, which he basically meant was there being a whole bunch of ideas in the marketplace of ideas, political solutions, and people would, according to their inclination, support or oppose, and then they would fight it out amongst themselves for political, social, economic supremacy. And this is a natural state of affairs, and when it is explained in this way, it makes sense, doesn't it? So it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's communism or capitalism or Christianity or Islam or whatever combination it is. People will be attached to their own experiences and their beliefs and their views, and will fight it out against other groups that they see as a threat or in opposition to their interests. I like to think that okay, there's nothing unusual in me in wanting to be right. We all want to be right, and I guess I'm saying that I do test out my ideas. I don't swaddle my ideas in a protective shield, and not, not ever expose them to scrutiny or criticism. I bring them to people and say that, this is what it is. Am I wrong? And if you can't prove me wrong, then I must be right, mustn't I? And so far, nothing I have heard from anyone has changed my mind about the accuracy of my diagnosis and the validity of my solution. Yes, I have. I have been drinking my tea. So, I do see why people would think that why I am seem to be narcissistic, in the sense that I do have big ideas, and I don't trot them out just to, for shock value. I really think that my diagnosis is accurate. I really do think that the moral and political system of the West have broken down. I really do think that any society needs a functioning moral system, at least effective at maintaining minimum standards of sexual morality, and I don't think the West has it. And there has been a pattern of societies breaking down. Great empires eventually decline, and they decline centuries that they, by the time of the actual collapse, you will find that there has been a decline in moral standards a few centuries ago, and this means that its people will be unable to do what their ancestors did when they were at the height of their empire, the height of their success. And this is what is known as degeneracy. That has caused the decline. And this is all linked to corruption, moral corruption. And moral corruption always involves ignoring or denying the truth, believing in nonsense, and not following through with what are supposed to be the principles that made your group successful. And I just don't think I'm wrong. So obviously, any honest and rational human being would have to understand that his survival depends on submitting to truth and exercising logic. Forget morality for a moment. Let's say you are an animal, a non-human animal, struggling for survival. You need shelter, you need food, you need a mate, you need to look after your offspring so that they at least survive into adulthood, and then, only then, can you consider your purpose as a creature to be done. That is the highest aspiration you can have as an animal, that you meet some other creature of the opposite sex that will mate with you, and you will have offspring, and in this way you continue the existence of your species. And humans have their own form, and obviously they are organized in slightly different ways, and they would be attached to groups. And obviously they would hope that their group is the most successful, but if they're not, they could possibly join other groups and other nations to better enable their success. But I'm saying that even if you were not the most moral person, perhaps even a criminal or even worse than that, a serial killer, you would need, in order to continue doing your evil things, the ability to evade those who would capture you. And in order to do this, you would need to submit to truth. You can't pretend the cops aren't after you when in fact they are. You can't not exercise logic in trying to avoid capture. So you would have to submit to truth and logic in order to continue doing the evil things that you want to continue to do. But obviously, if you want to continue, if you regard yourself as a law-abiding member of society, you would have to follow certain principles of behavior in order to find yourself continuing to be accepted as a law-abiding member of respectable society. These are, pretty basic and obvious rules of survival, and I don't think I'm wrong in pointing this out. So, what are moral principles? Moral principles are the rules of behavior that would allow your group to prosper, assuming they are any good at all. And this means having to do certain things or not do certain things for your group, for the members of your group. And I really don't think I'm wrong in thinking that this moral system of which I speak comes from religion. And it is exasperating when you think, well, it's not that hard to work out that there are only 5 religions, really. I mean, why go to any fringe religion when, the 5 big ones are the most prominent ones? Why go to any smaller group unless you happen to belong to the smaller groups, and understandably you don't want to leave the group of your parents, your family, your community, so you stay within it and don't question it too much. But I'm saying, if you are looking for a new moral system, then you should be grateful that there are not that many to choose from. There are 5, as I've said. And if you're a Westerner, you should dismiss the Eastern religions because they're not part of your tradition, and it's not like they have achieved great success in the East. So Buddhism and Hinduism are, well, not a viable prospect for a West that is looking for a new religion. So there are only 3 Abrahamic faiths, and one of them, if you're not Jewish, is out. There's no reason for any Gentile to become Jewish unless he or she wants to marry somebody Jewish. So this is already becoming so obvious, and if the West is declining, then it must be because of the failure of Christianity, and a further examination of the state of Christianity will show you that it is kaput, because hardly anyone in the West is Christian anymore. And I've already explained that just because you see churches and cathedrals and apparent signs of Christianity doesn't mean that Christianity is operating on the minds of the people who identify as Christian, because they follow no rules. They only regard Christianity as an artifact, places that they go to when they attend funerals and weddings. And nothing about Christianity in the way that it operates can be said to be uniquely Christian principles, other than the one of worshipping Jesus as God. So there are no real Christian principles of behavior. Nobody can really agree on what they are, other than that of subscribing to the doctrine of the Trinity, which in fact Christians don't, because hardly any Christian that you come across have been confirmed, and many Christians don't even know what the process is. So it is obviously kaput, and if you want to push back against this, it's only because you feel a certain chauvinism. You want to think that you're Christian, you want to think that Christianity is working, and that is because you reject the alternative, which is Islam. And the reason for this is understandable because of the generalized Islamophobia of people living in Western nations who are not Muslim. So there's already an obvious reason. We have heard of those who convert to Christianity and, they experience rejection from their family and their friends, and so practice is difficult. But some, assertion of one's new Muslim identity is necessary, by refusing alcohol and having to observe the 5 times prayer. I've seen white converts do that, and it is more than I can do, because I too, want to fit in, and I don't see the point of going out of my way to make a point, and I don't feel I need to make my point about secular Quranism, because the whole point of secular Quranism is that freedom of belief is guaranteed. So I don't feel I have to become Muslim in order to sell secular Quranism, and I think it is necessary for me to stand firm on my agnosticism in order to more successfully make the point about secular Quranism guaranteeing freedom of belief. Now, in order to get more support for it, I obviously hope that principled and courageous people will discuss it. But I see that a lot of people are conflicted, and there will be those who briefly considered it, considered supporting it, who do not think that their circumstances allow them to support it. And I understand. And even when they accuse me of narcissism, I see their point. I mean, when I think of what it is I'm trying to do, I am challenging 2,000 years of Christian history and saying, well, it's a wrong religion. So I do see the enormity of the opposition that is already ranged against me. It's not so much the reluctance of the individual, but really, a network of vested interests who don't want to be seen to be supporting what they must consider to be a newfangled idea. So a charge of narcissism might be, well, not that far from the truth. If narcissism is indeed no, let me just look up the definition. Narcissism is a self-centered personality style characterized as having an excessive interest in one's physical appearance, that's not me, and an excessive preoccupation with one's own needs, often at the expense of others. I don't think I am like that. I don't crave personal attention. I don't withhold it from others. I don't behave in an unequal way to others. It continues, it is human nature to be selfish and boastful to a certain degree, and there is a significant difference between being narcissistic and self-absorbed and having a mental illness or the pathology of narcissistic personality disorder. Okay. So I guess we'll have to look at narcissistic personality disorder. I don't think I suffer from it really, but you know, if you want to accuse someone of narcissism, you would have to eventually accuse them of narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe I'll have a few comments in the chat about some ideas I could, some conditions I could look up. I suppose people will just be astounded and astonished that that's what I'm trying to achieve. That I am, saying that you should give up your Christianity, your 2,000 years of Christian history. Well, it's time to give that up, and I'm basically saying, well, why shouldn't I say it if it is true? If it is true, why shouldn't I say it? And if I don't say it, is anybody else going to say it? And if nobody says it, then you'll just carry on, won't you? Thinking you have a religion and it's sort of working and you don't need to change anything and all you have to do is worship Jesus as God and everything will be fine. But I don't think that's true. I think the longer you refuse to fix it, the worse things will be for you. So those of you who know what I'm saying but don't want to join me in saying it, there's obviously a conflict. Often neurosis is a consequence of being in a state of neurotic suspension and not knowing what you should do for the best. On the one hand this, on the other hand that, and you're between a rock and a hard place. Sam Vaknin, I guess he's some sort of narcissist. Let's ring up that bell. I remember his name being mentioned the last time I discussed this subject with someone else. So I don't really remember. Yeah, I know he's a narcissist. He's on Instagram. I'm probably going to get into terrible trouble now because I will work through the logic of my feelings and the challenges to my position and what they might say. Okay, so I'm at the page of Vaknin. Vaknin. Oh, okay. Anyway, he's got this sort of weird sounding Instagram account. And he says, I have 190 IQ and I make sure that my interlocutors are well appraised of this daunting fact. They instantly feel inferior and I react in one of two ways: aggression, I'm going to hurt you, and paranoia, you are going to hurt me. Men and women alike try to buttress their shattered self-esteem by derisively asserting that they are my intellectual equals or betters. Okay, well that doesn't apply to me. I don't. Well, I don't think I lord it over anyone and say, "Oh look, I'm so clever, and you have to listen to me." Okay, what have you learned from him? And do you think I am a narcissist? So what was I going to say? I already acknowledged what it is I'm trying to do. I see that it is not the usual thing. I don't see anyone else as trying to do the same. Competing political activists in the same field of activity, i.e., in the dissident right, they don't really say anything new. They have bigger channels than me, and they have more support. But from weak people, I think, because these weak people just want to be pandered to and want to feel comfortable, in their hug box and in group. And they're not very good at arguing and they can't make their point succinctly. They have unpopular ideas that need the protection of the group, or they will be, horribly exposed and defeated. My complaint is that not enough people who are my intellectual equal will engage with me. And this was, in fact, confirmed last night. And and somebody was saying, well, it's a shame you have to belong in the bottom with these, imbeciles and plebs and, really quite low-grade people. And I do understand why somebody, like the person talking to me, would not do what I'm doing, not touch it with a barge pole. But I do understand that politics is a dirty business, and a lot of what people really ought to do in politics is sewage treatment. So there's nothing particularly glamorous in what I do because of the kind of people I have to mix with and the kind of language I have to deal with, and perhaps the motivations of the people who say these things are probably not the most noble. Thank you, as hard to see too, for not believing that I'm a narcissist. Yes, I think if I were a narcissist, I wouldn't be doing this, or I would be doing it in a way that would raise my status, make my channel bigger, and because that would be the most objective way of raising my status, by having a bigger channel. And it is easy to get a bigger channel by making sure that you say things that would attract the maximum number of people. Oh, Christine Ramsey, why don't you tell us how you define autism? I define it as being weird and annoying, and I will be a good sport and acknowledge that quite often people do find me weird and annoying. Yes, as I'd see too. I do try to tell the truth because it stands out. I think people can tell if you're lying or not. And I think if you tell the truth, you don't have to hide anymore. And obviously, there is a certain amount of preparation you have to do as regards aspects of your own life that might come to light. There was a time when I did this anonymously until eventually I was found out, and then I said it under my real name, which is enormously privileging in a way because when you know how many people hide their identity because of social or career reasons. It is an enormous privilege to be able to say it as yourself. And I think it is important that people believe that you tell the truth. Or why should they do anything you say or follow even the logic of your arguments? Yes, the usual accusation of lack of empathy. Now, empathy is, well, I mean, the people who complain that you lack empathy, I mean, they're complaining that you lack empathy for the groups that they support. Because maybe your lack of empathy for one group is evidence of your empathy for the other group. So that would be my argument that if I do display a lack of empathy for one group, it means I'm actually showing it for another group. But, this is a popular argument that is hurled at you by women who, like to wear their emotions on their sleeves and they can't be reasoned with because they'll just get upset with you and call you names and try and destroy your reputation amongst other women. But I like to think that there are women who are honourable, truthful, reasonable, and who also have moral principles. They're a bit thin on the ground, but I think they do exist, and I think they can be induced to do the right thing from time to time. Occasionally, when they see that there is no choice but to follow their principles, because otherwise there will be nobody else. And often in these matters of principle, the field is clear for us to show principle because nobody else wants to, act on the logic of their political position. So I think if people acted on facts and logic, limited by principle, because obviously the more things we can do that are based on truth and logic, then we can, if it was sort of narrowed by the restriction of principle. And this is really what principle is for. It's to stop us from doing things that we shouldn't do, and to identify ourselves as moral creatures with moral autonomy, with what's the word? Moral authority, moral agency. We have to be people who follow a certain set of principles, and this, I think, is what religion is for. We say we are, in this group practicing this moral system, and therefore we will officially at least be identified with, not breaking the Sabbath, or not eating pork, or not gambling and not drinking alcohol, or something of that nature, so that people can, well, usually employers can predict our behavior on that basis. And this is really what the form filling in so many applications, are about. It's people wanting to predict your behavior if you want to share a flat, or do something that you need to apply for. That's what people want to do and want you to do when they ask you your marital status, your date of birth, your, country of origin, your health, your marital status. They want that they're using these pieces of information to predict your future behavior, so they know how to deal with you as employees, as universities. And so if you helpfully oblige by saying that you're, Jewish or Muslim or whatever, people will think, okay, you're going to be eating pork or not eating pork, or avoiding beef or whatever. So they know how to deal with you, or whether they want to deal with you at all. And so when an entire country has a particular religion, say they're an Islamic state, or they're not, or they're the Western nation, people will know what to expect when they arrive in that country, what kind of public morality they will expect to prevail. So this is what religion is really for. A lot of people think it's about the afterlife and praying to God or whatever, but no, it is a way for humans to identify each other and predict their behavior. I don't know what a covert cerebral narcissist is. Perhaps you'll explain as a Asadzi too. Autism is, well, I think, people who are socially awkward. I used to be socially awkward. I think I've gotten over it. Of course, in certain situations one can feel socially awkward, but that might be because we know we've done something bad or haven't done something we should have done. So there will be people who want to cause you discomfort and distress by suggesting that you might have different kinds of mental disorder, because you have annoyed them by saying that their Christianity is kaput, right? I don't mind admitting to any disorder if I have it, but I don't think I do. I think the reasons why people might wish to do me down are quite obvious. They don't want me to say what I say. Even if they agree with me, they don't want to be seen to be agreeing with me. But I also have to concede that what I propose to do is ambitious and enormous. But it is also easy to understand, and if people were being honest, they would soon understand it. And if they were honourable, they would act on it. So I don't think I am being particularly, what's the word? There's a word that I'm going to grandiose. That might be one of the things I might be accused of being of suffering from. Grandiosity. In the field of psychology, the term grandiosity refers to an unrealistic sense of superiority characterized by a sustained view of oneself as better than others, which is expressed by disdainfully criticizing them, overinflating one's own capability, and belittling them as inferior, and refers to a sense of personal uniqueness, the belief that few other people have anything in common with oneself, and that one can only be understood by a few very special people. The personality trait of grandiosity is principally associated with narcissistic personality disorder, (NPD), but also is a feature in the occurrence of and expression of antisocial personality disorder, and the manic and hypomanic episodes of bipolar disorder. Yeah, it's all mixed up, isn't it? Narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder and bipolar disorder. I think maybe the traits, the symptoms are the same. So I'm actually interested in the words called manic and hypomanic. So manic is also known as Manic Syndrome, is mental and behavioral disorder defined as a state of abnormally elevated arousal, affect and energy level, or a state of heightened overall activation with enhanced affective expression together with lability of affect. I don't know what that means. During a manic episode, an individual will experience rapidly changing emotions and moods, highly influenced by surrounding stimuli. Although mania is often achieved as a mirror image to depression, the heightened mood can be either euphoric or dysphoric. As the mania intensifies, irritability can be more pronounced and result in anxiety or anger. The symptoms of mania include elevated mood, either euphoric or irritable, flight of ideas and pressure of speech, increased energy, decreased need and desire for sleep, and hyperactivity. They are mostly plainly evident in fully developed hypomanic states. However, in full-blown mania, they undergo progressively severe exacerbations and become more and more obscured by other signs and symptoms such as delusions and fragmentation of behavior. So the other word I wanted to look is hypomanic. Hypomania, literally under mania or less than mania, is a mental and behavioral disorder characterized essentially by an apparently non-contextual elevation of mood, euphoria, which contributes to persistently disinhibited behavior. The individual affected may suffer with irritability, not necessarily less severe than full mania. In fact, the presence of marked irritability is a documented feature of hypomanic and mixed episodes in bipolar type 2. How many bipolar types are there? Hypersexuality, no, that's not me. I don't think I suffer from any of this. I really don't. I should look up bipolar disorder as a final stop. Bipolar I think that there are two kinds of bipolar disorders that's news to me. Bipolar 1 disorder, at least one manic episode is necessary to make the diagnosis. Okay. Depressive episodes are common in the vast majority of cases with bipolar disorder 1, but unnecessary for the diagnosis. Specifiers such as mild, moderate, severe, and with psychotic features should be added as applicable to indicate the presentation and the cause of the disorder. Bipolar 2 disorder, no manic episodes and one or more hypomanic episodes and one or more major depressive episodes. Hypomanic episodes do not go to the full extremes of mania, i.e., do not usually cause severe social or occupational impairment and are without psychosis, and this can make bipolar 2 more difficult to diagnose, since the hypomanic episodes may simply appear as periods of successful high productivity and are reported less frequently than distressing, crippling depression. So bipolar is obviously, highs and lows and euphoria and depression. I'm pretty what's the word? Well, I don't really suffer from highs and lows. And really, fundamentally, I would go back to my stock 3 defenses. I'm not relying on anything that is not true, not logical, or not moral. I'm not proposing anything like that. So that would be, my final line of defense. Whatever you think of my political objectives and my political ambitions, what I propose is not immoral, and you can't fault my logic, even if you don't want to come with me to my ultimate destination. So thank you all for listening so far, and I guess I'll speak to you before too long.